Hello, my name is Christine and I run a vintage shop called Prima Treasures on Etsy. I keep hearing that granny core and granny chic are trending lately, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk about antique silver. Specifically, how you know if something is antique compared to, let's just say, a newer, more modern type of silver. So I brought some pieces out to show, and on the left hand side are antique pieces, and on the right hand side are modern, let's say mid-century pieces. Now, modern silver, in the sense that we might think about it, isn't so much a thing because I believe the baby boomers were probably the last generation who actually used silver and purchased silver as a regular part of their lives. Pretty much since the 80s, 90s, and the new millennium, people don't really think of silver as something that they are going to gift or use or anything like that. So most of the quote modern silver that you might see is probably going to be mid-century silver. And that's pretty much what I have on my table here. I think the champagne bucket in the back is probably 70s, 80s. This teapot is in the front is probably roughly the same time period. But what I really wanted to do is kind of point out ways that you can identify, say you're in a thrift shop, you're at an estate sale, you're not real sure what you're looking at. So I wanted to point out some characteristics that would help you hone in on whether something is a newer type of silver or is legitimately antique. And antique silver, generally what we think of is the Victorian era silver. That was kind of the heyday for silver makers to be their most creative, their most innovative, and you can kind of see that in the designs that I pulled out. So right in front here, this is a design by Reed and Barton, and hopefully you've noticed that there's an actual lion on top of the lid. This is like an actual sculpted figure. And the handles here have kind of a, to my mind, it's sort of a Viking ship look to them, and there's actually little sort of weird glyph runes down the side. And then you also have another characteristics of Victorian silver would be these tall feet that make it look like it's kind of up on stilts. Behind that we have a little wedding basket, and again it's got some pretty ornate qualities to it. There's actual fairies. It's like a little cherub with wings on that side. The pedestal has very detailed designs on it. I believe, no, the little cherub motif goes all the way around. Each of these little medallions has a fully realized human figure with wings, whatever you want to call that. And then over here at the far left, you have a water pitcher, and I don't know if you can see in the video, but on the spout is a very detailed 3D etching of a raven. So, and then below the raven, I'm going to scoot this a little bit so you can see, they actually have engraved here a little spray of ferns, a flower. I mean, it's got a lot of detail on there. So that's one of the things that you can look for to decide if something that you've seen in a retail or in a thrift store is potentially antique, is what is the level of detail of the design. Now over here, by contrast, I've got the mid-century silver, and it does have some design elements, but they're usually limited to the top of the lid, the handle, the feet, a spout if there is one, and you can see the same thing on this champagne bucket. It's got this little design around the top rim, and the handles are decorated, and actually even the base is not decorated on that particular piece. So usually with the mid-century silver, you're going to see like the main body of whatever the piece is will just be plain. It will not have any kind of decoration, little to no decoration. And then the place where the decorative touches are is going to be the edges, the handles, the feet, etc. Whereas here you can see on all of these pieces, they've taken the time to put engraved designs on the body or on the foot, or in the case of the pitcher, all across the middle of the pitcher. So there's a lot more decorative elements that are happening in an antique piece of silver. Hopefully you've also noticed that this antique silver has more tarnish, discoloration. That picture actually looks gray from tarnish, which some people might interpret and believe, oh, this is a pewter picture, but it actually isn't. It's a silver-plated picture. It just has such a darkened patina that it looks more pewter than silver. And whereas these are quite shiny, and you can see the difference in the shine level between these two pieces and the pieces on the other side that are much older. So you can look for stuff like that. As I say, the Victorian pieces back in that point of time, they tended to be more innovative, more creative. So you're going to see a wider variety of shapes in the Victorian pieces. You can see here, I mean, this is pretty identifiable as a champagne bucket, and almost all champagne buckets you see from this time frame are going to be this shape. They're not going to deviate a lot. Same thing with the teapot. You know, it might be a little bit different, but for the most part, it's going to have the same shape. Yet you come over here and you see this is actually a sugar bowl. I certainly wouldn't pick it out as a sugar bowl if I saw it in a lineup. It has a very unique shape to it. And this basket is also kind of unusual in the sense that it doesn't have a solid bowl. It actually has a completely cut out bowl, and it would have had a piece of glass in the middle so that the silver itself could be entirely decorative in nature. So that would be the third thing you could look for when you're looking at a piece of silver is, does it have kind of an unusual and distinctive shape? If it looks more utilitarian and common in shape of what it is, then that's going to point to it being a newer piece. And if it has a very distinctive shape and design, that is an indicator that it might be an older piece from the Victorian era, which is roughly, you know, the mid to late 1800s all the way up through, I'm going to say, the 1910s. Once you get into the 1920s, you're talking about more Art Deco designs. But that gives you a few things that you can look for to kind of help you decide if a piece is antique or just vintage. And if you're out shopping at a thrift store or you find yourself in an estate sale, and I would say, generally speaking, any piece that kind of jumps out at you as looking different and unusual, that's a reason for a second look. Another thing you can check for, and I'm just going to throw this out there because it's not always the case, but if you look at the bottom of most silver, they do have marks, and hopefully you can see here that this one has a mark. And one of the things that an antique piece of silver will say that a vintage won't is there's a particular term called quadruple. Quadruple plate, quadruple silver. This term was primarily used during the Victorian era. You will not see a piece of modern silver that says quadruple. So if you look at the bottom and you read the mark and it has the word quadruple, then you can be fairly certain that's an antique piece of silver. So I hope all of these various suggestions help you, especially, as I say, if you're somebody who's kind of looking to jump into granny chic, granny core type decor, and you want something that's, you know, legitimate to that period. It can be tricky to find antique pieces in a thrift store, but I have done it, so it's not impossible. And it's easier if you know what to look for, and basically you look at stuff like this on this side and you go, okay, well, everything in this thrift store looks like this, so I'm going to move along. So I hope this helps, and good luck.